Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd have to deal with an entitled person trying to claim my property, but life has a way of surprising you. My name is Sarah, and I'm the proud owner of a beautiful vintage beach house that's been in my family for generations. Little did I know that this cherished piece of my family's history would become the center of a ridiculous dispute with a woman I can only describe as a real-life Karen. It all started on a warm Saturday morning in early June. I had just arrived at the beach house for my annual summer stay. The weather was perfect, sunny with a gentle breeze coming off the ocean. As I unpacked my car and walked up to the house, I couldn't help but smile. This place held so many wonderful memories for me. The house itself was a charming two-story structure built in the 1920s. It had weathered white clapboard siding, blue shutters, and a wide wraparound porch perfect for watching sunsets. Inside, much of the original hardwood flooring and vintage fixtures remained intact. My great-grandparents had purchased the property when it was first built, and it had been passed down through the generations ever since. What made the property truly special was its location. The house sat on a generous 5-acre lot that stretched from the road all the way down to a private beach. A winding path through sand dunes and seagrass led from the back porch to the shoreline. It was incredibly peaceful and secluded. The nearest neighbor was over half a mile away in either direction. I spent that first day getting the house opened up and settled in for my stay. By evening, I was relaxing on the back porch with a glass of wine, watching the waves and enjoying the solitude. Little did I know that my peace was about to be shattered. The next morning, I decided to take a walk down to the beach. As I made my way along the path, I noticed something odd. There were beach chairs and umbrellas set up near the water's edge. That was strange, as I knew I hadn't put anything out there yet. As I got closer, I saw a group of people lounging in the chairs and splashing in the surf. Confused, I approached the group. "Excuse me," I called out, "I think there may have been some misunderstanding. This is actually a private beach." A woman with bleach blonde hair piled high on her head turned to look at me with a scowl. She was probably in her mid-40s, wearing an ill-fitting bikini and large sunglasses. "Excuse me?" she said in a sharp tone. "This is a public beach. We have every right to be here." I tried to stay polite as I explained, "Actually, ma'am, this entire property including the beach is privately owned. It's been in my family for generations. There are public beaches about a mile down the shore in either direction, but this particular stretch is part of my land." The woman, who I would come to know as Karen, stood up and put her hands on her hips. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "All beaches are public property. You can't own a beach." "I'm afraid that's not correct," I said, trying to keep my cool. "While many beaches are public, this one is part of a private land parcel that extends to the water. I have the deed and property records to prove it." Karen was having none of it. "Well, I don't care what piece of paper you have. We found this nice secluded spot and we're not leaving. Go bother someone else." At this point, I was starting to get frustrated. "Look, I'm not trying to be difficult, but you are trespassing on private property. I'm going to have to ask you and your group to pack up and move to one of the public beaches nearby." That's when Karen really lost it. She started yelling and causing a scene, drawing the attention of the rest of her group. "How dare you try to kick us out? We have just as much right to be here as anyone else. This is America. You can't just claim a whole beach for yourself." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Ma'am, please lower your voice. I understand you're upset, but I am simply informing you of the facts. This is a private beach that is part of my property. I have asked you nicely to leave. If you refuse, I will have no choice but to call the authorities to have you removed for trespassing." Karen's face turned red with anger. "Oh, you want to call the police? Go right ahead. They'll tell you that you can't own a beach. We're not going anywhere." At this point, I realized reasoning with her was futile. "All right then," I said firmly. "I'll be contacting the sheriff's office. Please don't make this any more difficult than it needs to be." As I turned to head back to the house, I heard Karen shouting after me, "That's right, run away. We'll be right here enjoying our beach when you get back." I shook my head in disbelief as I walked up the path. In all my years coming here, I'd never encountered anything like this. Sure, occasionally someone would wander onto the property by mistake, but they always left politely when informed it was private land. This woman's entitled attitude was on another level. Back at the house, I called the local sheriff's office to report the trespassers. The dispatcher said they would send a deputy out shortly. While I waited, I dug out the property records from the study, just in case I needed to prove my ownership. About 20 minutes later, I saw a patrol car pull up out front. I went out to meet the deputy, a friendly-looking man in his 50s named Officer Johnson. I explained the situation and showed him the property documents. "I'm familiar with this property, ma'am," he said. "Been out this way many times over the years. Let's go have a chat with these folks and get this sorted out." We made our way down to the beach, where Karen and her group were still camped out defiantly. When she saw us approaching, Karen jumped up with a triumphant look on her face. "Oh good, you brought the police," she exclaimed. "Officer, this woman is trying to illegally kick us off a public beach. Please explain to her that she can't own a beach." Officer Johnson held up his hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. I've spoken with the property owner here and reviewed the documentation. This is indeed a privately owned beach that is not open to the public. Karen's jaw dropped in disbelief. That's impossible. All beaches have to be public access. That's a common misconception, the officer explained patiently. While many beaches are public, there are privately owned beaches as well. This particular property has been in this family for nearly 100 years and includes the beach area. You and your group are trespassing on private property. Karen sputtered indignantly. But we drove for hours to come to the beach. You can't just make us leave. I'm afraid I can, ma'am, said Officer Johnson firmly. I'm going to have to ask you all to pack up your belongings and vacate the property immediately. There are lovely public beaches just down the shore where you're welcome to set up. Realizing she was fighting a losing battle, Karen's demeanor suddenly changed. She put on a sugary sweet voice and turned to me. Oh, I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding. We had no idea this was private property. Surely you wouldn't mind if we just stayed for a little while longer? It's such a beautiful spot. I wasn't about to fall for her manipulative tactics. I'm sorry, but no, I said firmly. You've already been extremely rude and refused to leave when I asked politely. I'm no longer comfortable with you being on my property. Please leave now. Karen's face twisted in anger again. You're making a big mistake, she hissed. My husband is a lawyer and will sue you for harassment. Officer Johnson stepped in. Ma'am, that's enough. You need to leave now or I'll have no choice but to cite you for trespassing. Don't make this worse for yourself. Finally accepting defeat, Karen began angrily gathering up her things, muttering under her breath the whole time. The rest of her group quietly packed up as well, looking embarrassed by her behavior. As they trudged up the path to leave, Karen turned back one last time. This isn't over, she yelled. You haven't heard the last of me. I thanked Officer Johnson for his help as the group finally vacated my property. I hoped that would be the end of it, but unfortunately Karen wasn't quite done causing trouble yet. Over the next week, I started noticing strange things happening around the property. One morning, I woke up to find my mailbox had been knocked over. A few days later, someone had strewn trash all over the path to the beach. Then one of the windows on the porch was broken by a rock. I strongly suspected Karen or someone connected to her was behind these petty acts of vandalism. I reported each incident to the police, but without clear evidence of who was responsible, there wasn't much they could do beyond taking a report. Things came to a head about 10 days after the initial beach confrontation. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard a commotion outside. I looked out the window to see Karen marching up to my front door with a man in a suit who I assumed was her lawyer husband. Before I could even react, Karen started pounding on the door and yelling, "We know you're in there. Come out and face us, you beach-hogging thief." I took a deep breath to steel myself before opening the door. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. Karen's face was red with anger. "You most certainly can," she spat. "This is my husband, Robert. He's a very successful attorney, and he's here to inform you that what you're doing is illegal. You can't keep people off the beach." The man in the suit gave me an apologetic look. "I'm very sorry about this," he said. "I've tried explaining to my wife that." Karen cut him off. "Don't apologize to her. Tell her what you told me about adverse possession." Robert sighed heavily. "Karen, I've already explained multiple times that adverse possession doesn't apply here. This woman legally owns this property, including the beach area." I decided to speak up. "Sir, I don't mean to be rude, but you and your wife are trespassing on my property right now. I'm going to have to ask you to leave immediately." Karen's eyes bulged with rage. "How dare you? We have every right to be here. Robert, do something." Robert turned to his wife with an exasperated look. "Karen, we need to go. Now? You're only making things worse." "I'm not going anywhere until she agrees to open up the beach," Karen shrieked. At that moment, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. To my horror, I saw Karen and Robert's teenage son sneaking around the side of the house with a can of spray paint. He was clearly planning to vandalize my home while his parents kept me distracted at the front door. "Hey," I yelled. "Young man, put that spray paint down right now." Karen whirled around to see what I was looking at. When she spotted her son, her face went pale. Robert looked mortified. "Tyler, what on earth do you think you're doing? Get over here this instant." The boy, Tyler, dropped the spray paint and shuffled over with his head hung low. "Mom said we had to teach her a lesson," he mumbled. I was livid. That's it? I've had enough of this harassment. I'm calling the police right now and pressing charges for attempted vandalism and trespassing." Karen started to protest, but Robert put his hand on her arm. "Karen, be quiet. You've done more than enough damage." He turned to me with a pleading look. "Ma'am, I cannot apologize enough for my family's atrocious behavior. I promise you, this will never happen again. Please, if you could find it in your heart not to press charges, I would be eternally grateful. I give you my word that we will leave you in peace from now on." I considered for a moment. While I was angry, I also didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble for the boy if his mother had put him up to it. "All right," I said finally. "I won't call the police this time, but I want you all off my property immediately. And if there is even one more incident of harassment or vandalism, I will pursue legal action. Is that understood?" Robert nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course. Thank you for your graciousness. Karen, Tyler, apologize to this woman right now and then we're leaving. Tyler mumbled a quiet sorry while Karen just glared silently. Karen, Robert said in a warning tone. Fine, Karen snapped. I'm sorry. Happy now? Without waiting for a response, she stormed off toward their car. Robert gave me one last apologetic look before ushering Tyler away as well. As they drove off, I breathed a sigh of relief, hoping that would finally be the end of the whole ordeal. Thankfully, it seemed Robert had finally gotten through to Karen, as I didn't have any more issues for the rest of the summer. Just to be safe though, I decided to take some precautions to protect my property going forward. I had security cameras installed around the perimeter of the house and property. I also put up some discreet no trespassing signs at the borders of the land. Additionally, I spoke with my lawyer about my rights as the property owner. He advised me to file a restraining order against Karen, which would legally bar her from coming near my property again. Given her pattern of harassment, the judge had no problem granting the order. My lawyer also suggested I look into officially registering the private beach with the county, just to have it on record. While my ownership was already legally sound, he said it couldn't hurt to have that extra layer of documentation. As the weeks passed, life at the beach house returned to normal. I was able to enjoy the rest of my summer in peace, taking long walks on my private beach and relaxing on the porch with no further disruptions. Reflecting on the whole experience, I felt proud of myself for standing my ground against Karen's entitled behavior. While it had been stressful in the moment, I knew I had done the right thing in protecting my family's property and my own rights. I also felt a sense of gratitude for the support I'd received, from Officer Johnson who calmly diffused the situation, to my lawyer who helped me take steps to prevent future issues. It was a reminder that while there will always be difficult people in the world, there are also plenty of good folks willing to stand up for what's right. As the summer drew to a close, I found myself appreciating my little slice of beach paradise more than ever. This place had been a source of joy for generations of my family, and I was determined to preserve it for generations to come, entitled Karen's Be Damned. Before leaving to return home at the end of August, I took one last walk down to the shore. As I stood there with my toes in the sand, watching the waves roll in, I felt a deep sense of peace. This land was a part of me, and I was a part of it. No amount of harassment could ever change that. I smiled to myself, thinking how my great-grandparents would be proud to know their beloved beach house was still being cherished and protected by their descendants. As I turned to head back up to the house, I made a silent promise to always honor their legacy by being a good steward of this special place. With that thought warming my heart, I took one last look at the sparkling ocean before me. The entitled Karen incident was now just another story in the long history of this property, a reminder that some things are worth fighting for, and that in the end, respect for others and the law will always win out over selfish demands. As I locked up the beach house and prepared for the drive home, I felt nothing but excitement for my return next summer. Karen or no Karen, this would always be my happy place, a private paradise by the sea, waiting patiently for my return each year with open arms and soothing waves. And who knows, maybe by next summer, Karen will have learned her lesson about respecting other people's property. But if not, I'll be ready to stand my ground once again. After all, this vintage beach house and the land around it aren't just property. They're a cherished part of my family's history and my own identity. And that's something worth protecting, no matter what challenges may come. Update, 1 year later. It's been a year since the incident with Karen and her family, and I'm happy to report that things have mostly returned to normal at my beloved beach house. As I pulled up to the property for my annual summer stay, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would this summer be peaceful, or would I face more entitled behavior? To my relief, the first few weeks were wonderfully uneventful. I fell back into my usual routine of morning walks on the beach, afternoons reading on the porch, and evenings watching the sunset over the water. The security cameras I had installed hadn't picked up any suspicious activity, and there were no signs of trespassing or vandalism. However, about a month into my stay, I received an unexpected visit from Officer Johnson, the deputy who had helped me during last year's confrontation. "Good afternoon, Ms. Sarah," he said as I opened the door. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, but I wanted to give you a heads up about something." I invited him in, feeling a knot of worry form in my stomach. "What's going on, officer?" He sighed as he sat down at my kitchen table. "Well, it seems Karen, you remember her from last summer? She's been making some noise down at the county office. She's trying to petition for public beach access through your property." I felt my face flush with anger. "You've got to be kidding me. After everything that happened last year?" Officer Johnson nodded sympathetically. "I'm afraid so. Now, don't worry too much. From what I understand, she doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. Your property rights are well established. But I thought you should know in case she tries to cause any more trouble." I thanked him for the warning, and after he left, I immediately called my lawyer to get his advice. He reassured me that Karen's petition had no chance of success, but suggested we file a formal response with the county to ensure my rights were protected. Over the next few weeks, I tried not to let Karen's latest antics ruin my summer, but I couldn't help feeling on edge, wondering if she might try to trespass again or cause more problems. Then, one sunny afternoon, I was surprised by another visitor. As I opened the door, I recognized Karen's husband, Robert. He looked uncomfortable and apologetic. "Miss Sarah," he said, "I hope I'm not bothering you. I wanted to come by and apologize again for everything that happened last summer, and to let you know about some recent developments." Cautiously, I invited him in. We sat on the porch and Robert began to explain. "First of all, I want you to know that Karen and I are getting divorced," he said. "Her behavior last summer was a wake-up call for me. I realized I couldn't keep enabling her entitled attitudes and actions." I nodded, unsure of what to say. Robert continued, "I also wanted to let you know that I've convinced Karen to drop her petition for beach access. It took some doing, but I made her understand that what she was doing was wrong and could potentially lead to legal consequences for her." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate you doing that and coming here to tell me." He smiled sadly. "It's the least I could do after all the trouble we caused you. There's one more thing. Our son, Tyler, he wanted me to give you this." Robert handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Tyler, apologizing for his attempt to vandalize my house last year. He wrote that he felt terrible about his actions, and had spent the past year doing community service to make amends. As Robert prepared to leave, he turned to me one last time. "Miss Sarah, I know this doesn't make up for everything, but I hope it gives you some peace of mind. You won't have any more trouble from us." After he left, I sat on the porch for a long time, processing everything. While I was glad to hear that Karen wouldn't be bothering me anymore, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness for the way things had turned out for their family. The next day, I decided to be proactive. I called the county office myself to check on the status of Karen's petition. They confirmed that it had been withdrawn and assured me that my property rights were secure. I also reached out to a local land conservation group. After discussing it with them, I decided to donate a small strip of my land at the far end of the property to be used as a public beach access point. It was far enough from my house to maintain my privacy, but it felt good to know that I was providing some public access to the beach on my own terms. As the summer went on, I noticed more people using the new public access point. Families would come to enjoy the beach, but they always respected the boundaries of my private property. It felt like a good compromise. I had protected what was mine while also being a good neighbor to the community. Towards the end of my stay, I received a letter from the county commissioner, thanking me for my donation of the public access point. They even invited me to a small ceremony to dedicate the new access path. At the ceremony, I was surprised to see Tyler there. He approached me nervously. "Miss Sarah," he said, "I just wanted to apologize in person for what I did last year. It was really stupid of me." I smiled at him. "Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate your apology, and I'm glad to hear you've been doing community service. Keep making good choices, okay?" He nodded earnestly before rejoining his father in the small crowd. As I stood there watching families enjoy the new beach access, I felt a sense of closure. The entitled behavior I'd faced had been frustrating and stressful, but in the end, it led to some positive changes. I had stood my ground, protected my rights, and even found a way to give back to the community. That evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I reflected on everything that had happened over the past year. I felt stronger for having stood up to Karen's entitled behavior, and proud of myself for not stooping to her level. I also felt grateful for the support I'd received, from Officer Johnson, my lawyer, and even Robert in the end. It was a reminder that while there will always be difficult people in the world, there are also plenty of good folks willing to do the right thing. As I prepare to close up the beach house for another year, I feel nothing but optimism for the future. My family's legacy remains intact, my property rights are secure, and I've found a way to share a small piece of this paradise with others. Karen's entitled behavior could have turned this special place into a source of stress and conflict. Instead, by standing firm, seeking help when I needed it, and finding a balanced solution, I've managed to make it even more meaningful. I know there may be other challenges in the future, but I feel ready to face them. This experience has taught me the importance of knowing my rights, standing up for myself, and finding constructive solutions to conflicts. As I take one last walk along my private beach, I smile to myself. The entitled Karen incident is now just another chapter in the long, rich history of this property. And thanks to how it all turned out, it's a chapter I can look back on with pride rather than frustration. Here's to many more peaceful summers by the sea, entitled Karens or not. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.